Check it out.
This is the SEC Insider Hit. It's driven by the John Deere tractors at Mississippi Ag. Visit agup.com to find a retail location near you.
Let's go.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. The Out of Bounds Show is driven by Fleetway Market. Fuel up at Fleetway Market for your next road trip. When you go see the Saints without Sean Payton. Just kidding. Wow. Fuel up at Fleetway Market, going to SEC basketball and SEC baseball games and the hunting camp. Also, there's over 20 Fleetway Market locations in the state of Mississippi and in Gluckstadt. All right, they have the Market Cafe. Great food. Great food at Fleetway Market and the Market Cafe in Gluckstadt. We welcome in our friend, NFL Insider, Senior Analyst, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. And Steve Palazzolo joins us on the Corona Premier guest line. And, Steve, is it true that you have Joe Burrow pajamas?
Yeah, that's we have to. It's an obligation here in Cincinnati. We got the whole the city's all colored orange right now. Yeah. Joe Burrow's our guy.
Man, so I know I asked you this last week, but this is fun, okay? Especially when it's a franchise who hasn't won in football in a long time, and even in baseball since 1990 with the Cincinnati Reds. Tell me again, what's it been like since they won the big game last weekend?
Yeah, I mean, there's just there has been just this renewed sense of hope, right? And again, I compare it to those Andy Dalton years where they said, "Yeah, we had a good team," but like nobody really believed Andy Dalton was going to go in there and win playoff games. There is a legitimate belief that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and this offense can play with anybody. And, of course, they did beat the Chiefs back in Week 17. So there's just a renewed sense of hope here in Cincinnati. And I think everybody obviously wants to win right now. But even if they don't, there's still this belief that the Bengals are going to be there every year, which is completely different from what it had been in the past. There was a lot of, they don't invest enough and the ownership doesn't care about us and all that stuff. All of a sudden, Joe Burrow is a franchise changer. And, he's changed, I think, the way the people of Cincinnati believe in the Bengals and this team this year.
That's awesome, man. I mean, that's what it's all about. So cool what's happening with the Cincinnati Bengals. Do you give them a shot this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, of course, any team has a shot. I mean, I think I would have, I picked the Chiefs to beat the Bengals in Week 17, and Cincinnati won. And I thought, you saw what happened last week when it's the playoffs and things are on the line. Mahomes, essentially other than the Super Bowls, has been incredible. I thought his 2 Super Bowls were his worst games. But Mahomes has been incredible. That offense, they're just so tough to stop in Kansas City. So, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are the favorites for a reason, but the Bengals do have a chance to compete. They're going to have to protect Burrow a lot better. And I think it's fascinating when you look at what the Bengals did back in Week 17 at the end of the game. I don't know if you remember exactly the way it went down, but it's a tie game, over a couple minutes left in the game, and the Bengals did everything they could to run out every last second of the clock. Played with fire a little bit. They went for it on 4th down in a tie game instead of kicking the go-ahead field goal because they didn't want Mahomes to get the ball back because of what we just saw last week. You give them 13 seconds, all of a sudden they're in field goal range.
Incredible.
So the Bengals played it great in Week 17. They kind of lucked out a little bit. They got a 4th down penalty. They get a new set of downs. They can run. They ran the clock out, kicked the game-winning field goal. Mahomes never saw the ball. So it's like that type of fine line that the Bengals are working with against Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, that Chiefs offense. That really, those dudes just like change the arithmetic at the end of games because they can be so special even in a limited amount of time.
Yeah, they do. Would your approach be go let it rip and play super aggressive, or what would your approach be for the Cincinnati Bengals, knowing who the Chiefs are and how many times they've been here, Steve?
It has to be let it rip. It has to be, score as many points as possible. I mean, it's you're even if you try to shorten the game against the Chiefs, they'll have enough possessions to put points on the board. I think the tricky part here is I don't think the Bengals have a better defense than the Bills. Bills have a very good defense and carved them up. I mean, the Chiefs went through their midseason lull. That was real, but they're back. They've found answers to what the NFL was throwing at them. So, yeah, when the Bengals put the ball in Joe Burrow's hands, week 16 and 17 in particular, was against the Ravens and the Chiefs, and they said, go out and win this game. We're not going to just hand the ball to Joe Mixon 25 times like they were earlier in the year. Burrow came threw for over 500 yards per game over the 2-game stretch. I'm not saying it's going to be exactly like that again, but there was a point where they pivoted to a pass-first team, put the ball in Burrow's hands, and said, Burrow, Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, go win these games. And I think that's what they're going to need this weekend in the AFC Championship.
I can't wait. This is going to be fun. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. He joins us on the Corona Premier guest line as we have the AFC and NFC championships this weekend. All right, how about Matthew Stafford? And when everybody thought maybe that Brady was going to do what they always do after throwing the great pass to Evans and the comeback looked like it could happen, how about what McVay, Stafford, and Cooper Kupp pulled off with that huge pass down the field to solidify the win?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw my tweet before it happened, but I said there was too much time left for Cooper Kupp because that dude's uncoverable. And you saw back-to-back passes, makes this guy fall down and then gets behind the defense on that weird zero blitz call by the Bucs. But got to hand it to Stafford. I mean, he made the big throw that Jared Goff wasn't making in that offense. And then all the more, if you really want to put it out there, what the Rams struggled with was overload blitz pressure with Jared Goff. That was the weakness of their offense. That was the play that the Patriots ran in the Super Bowl against the Rams, zero blitz, and Goff threw it up for an interception. And the same play, Stafford hits Cooper Kupp for the eventual game winner. So, I think it just kind of showed the way that offense has progressed under Matthew Stafford, some of the different options that they have now, the ability to get the ball down the field, and just how difficult it is to cover Cooper Kupp at any point, but especially late in the game. So good on Stafford, showing – I don't think Stafford's been as good as the stats this year, but he's been very good, and he's been excellent in the playoffs. Made a lot, hasn't made the bad decisions, and, showing off the arm talent and everything that he's capable of.
Steve Palazzolo on the Out of Bounds show. Okay, Rams 49ers. This is a lot of fun for people. Two young coaches who are super aggressive, front offices same way. What do you make of all the buzz around Mike McDaniel, the offensive coordinator for Shanahan? And evidently he's another up and coming young wizard on offense, and all the wrinkles that they do in the running game, and the fact that he went to Yale. How long have you known about him? Are you buying that he is one of the next dudes? Tell me about him.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to how McVay's coaching tree all got jobs a couple of years ago, including Zach Taylor, who's in the Final Four right now. And anybody who's ever, had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay was getting interviewed, Brandon Staley and the whole deal. You're starting to see that maybe with Shanahan and that tree. I mean, Shanahan's dad, Mike, has a great coaching tree, which includes Sean McVay and a lot of the guys around the league. So I think you're just starting to see more of that. McDaniel clearly, he's just had a couple sharp interviews, right? He's and that catches people's eye, whether it's, making a couple jokes and just sounding like a, hipster offensive coordinator, combined with the actual smart things he's saying, why they run toss plays, but run them downhill instead of outside, why they do certain things, because clearly the evidence is on the field. This system is taking Jimmy Garoppolo, who has not played well overall in the last two games, and they've won a lot of games with Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been good, not great, throughout his Niners career when he's been on the field. And they just win with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they create offense, and they created a running back out of Deebo Samuel, and they've got Trent Williams in motion as like an H-back, basically, at 340 pounds. So they're just doing some really creative things, and I think that's why the NFL is intrigued by Mike McDaniel because he's in the middle of that room, doing those unique things that are creating offense and making all the pieces fit in San Francisco.
Are you going Rams?
Yeah, I can't get over the 6 straight wins by the Niners. And again, they just played in Week 18, and I'm thinking, okay, there's no way the first 5 games matter. And then the Rams get out to a 17-0 lead, and it's like, okay, they finally are going to do it. They're going to get over this hump and beat the Niners, and they didn't. They blew it. So I'll go back to the well and take the Rams. But, man, there's probably something to this, do the Niners just match up a certain way against the Rams to negate an Aaron Donald, to negate Jalen Ramsey? They do just enough on defense to put a little bit of pressure and take the offense off schedule. There's a lot that the Niners do well, but I still think the Rams are a better team, and they'll figure out how to beat the Niners this particular time around.
Okay. Steve Palazzolo on the Out of Bounds show and the Corona Premier Guest Line. Let's go to Sean Payton and his unbelievable run in New Orleans. 16 years, a Super Bowl. Blake, did you say 9 playoff appearances yesterday?
Yes, they had 5 in the history of the program prior to Sean Payton. He had 9. He went 9-8 prior to the Sean Payton's arrival to the Saints. Were 1-5 in playoff games.
Incredible. Steve, will you talk about his impact and how good they won? 40% of their games from 1967 to 2005, and he won 62% of his games as the head coach for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, an absolute game changer. Obviously, that it's so funny because we're going through all these coaching searches right now, and it's tough to really know who the best guys are. Sean Payton at the time. I mean, Payton early in his career, I think it was the Giants Super Bowl run in 2000. He got stripped of play calling duties.
Yeah.
He was like the hot shot play caller, and for whatever reason, it wasn't working with the Giants that particular year, and Jim Fossil started calling plays. It just kind of shows you don't really know. And Peyton was always a good offensive mind. And then what he brought to New Orleans, obviously he was the right fit, but he just brought incredible offensive stability. It obviously coincides with, getting Drew Brees and getting Drew Brees at a time when people didn't know what his shoulder was like. And, the rest is history. I think the level of consistency that they brought to the table offensively, and then when they had the defense on track, obviously there were some rough years in there as well, but when they had the defense on track, they were always among the best teams in the league. So incredible job by Peyton. You saw what he was capable of doing. We discussed it plenty here when Drew Brees was either hurt or gone, still found ways to win. I think the New Orleans, we talk about the Rams having a unique style and how they build their team. I think the Saints are right there. They had a lot of go for it type of years and pushing the cap back, and I thought they did a great job of just managing the entire organization with Peyton being right at the center of that, keeping it all together. So, yeah, just an incredible run. And I think you guys laid it out, taking a franchise that was among the league's worst and making it one of the best for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, they were irrelevant and dysfunctional for decades, and he made them relevant and then, of course, wins the Lombardi Trophy. Are you ready to go on record and say that Sean Payton will be coaching Dak Prescott in 2023?
No, these are the most obvious rumors around the NFL now. Sean Payton to the Cowboys and Aaron Rodgers to the Broncos, right? This is the lowest hanging fruit around the NFL. But clearly Payton left his options open. And, if the Cowboys fail again this year, I don't see Mike McCarthy sticking around much longer. So, yeah, let's get the rumors started. Sean Payton and Dak Prescott. And, look, if Dak can't do it with Sean Payton, is he ever going to do it? There's pressure on Dak then to perform when this happens in 2023.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I'll take that bet. Sean Payton can elevate Dak and the offense without question to me. All right, you just hit on something. With what Denver is doing, I mean, this thing is in play, right? They're going to make a run and do everything they can to land Aaron Rodgers?
I would think so. I mean, I've been joking that Aaron Rodgers doesn't like a whole lot of people in the world, but one of them apparently is Nathaniel Hackett. So the fact that he's got the head coaching job with the Broncos, I don't really mean that. I don't know what Aaron's personal life is really like, but Clearly, there's a connection there with Nathaniel Hackett. Rodgers has some serious decisions to make because the Packers have serious decisions to make with Devontae Adams, a free agent. Even if they franchise him, they're going to lose some of their good players. I think it's a tricky one, though, because if Aaron Rodgers is really trying to maximize the Super Bowl window, it might still be in Green Bay, where Minnesota and Chicago are completely rebuilding, and the Lions are completely rebuilding, and they don't have all the hot shot AFC quarterbacks like the other conference has. So it's an interesting dynamic. Of course, you're not going to shy away from competition or anything, but if you're truly trying to maximize odds here, your odds are still best in Green Bay, where again, you'll know the system in Denver. At least you don't have to adjust to that, but this familiarity in Green Bay that might make it even better for Aaron Rodgers to stick around. But yeah, clearly that's going to be the talk of the NFL right now is Rodgers going to Denver. And Denver's got a good roster, right? We were talking about this last year. He almost, it seemed like he almost ended up there even without Nathaniel Hackett. So,
Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus on the Out of Bounds show. Blake, you got something for
Steve, you were talking a little bit about the Rams and kind of the way they were able to come back against the Bucs, and obviously we saw what Patrick Mahomes did with 13 seconds and a couple timeouts, which is just truly remarkable. But I thought there was this interesting moment in the Rams game that showed who McVay is and why I think a lot of people have faith in McVay to get back to the promised land and probably ultimately win one at some point. Matt Stafford on that first drive with about 36 seconds left took a sack, okay? And I was sitting with my dad, who's like 65 or something like that, and he said, "Oh, they must be running out the clock. Like they're just going to go to the house, go to overtime." And I said, "No." I was like, he was trying to get out of pressure. It was like McVay doesn't go to overtime. And then we saw the next play, they dial up the zero blitz and they go for it. Talk a little bit about the mentality of taking a sack in that moment and saying, "No, we have the stones. We're going to call timeout. We're going to reset. I don't care that we just lost 2 yards. We're going down there. We're kicking a field goal. We're winning this game in regulation." Talk about how so many coaches would have taken that sack and said, "Well, on to overtime."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I think, is just the confidence in Matthew Stafford, too. And I think if you do want to get into, okay, what have been the differences in this Rams offense this year versus having Jared Goff? And I think Goff's fine. He was a good NFL quarterback. But the Rams this offseason said, we got to get better. We have to get better. We have to get better when I'm not dialing up perfect plays, right? And when we're not dialing up perfect plays. So they have confidence in Stafford to flip the field. And I don't think they would have done that maybe a year ago with the Jared Goff necessarily. So I think part of it's the confidence in the quarterback. As soon as Stafford got into the building, I've heard announcers talk to it. I've got my buddy, former PFFer Zach Robinson is in the quarterback room there. He said things are just different. They have this confidence in Stafford, and they showed it, right? So when you need a big time throw down the field, Stafford has shown that he's capable of it. So I think it's as much, McVay and his mentality as it, but it's also what you have in your actual quarterback, what his skill set is, and also this belief that even though he doesn't have the playoff experience, that the moment won't be too big for him. So yeah, I think a lot of it added up, and it ended up being a huge move. And it's also smart to say, okay, we're not going to test Tom Brady and the Bucs, who just made this 27-3 comeback. We're not going to test them in overtime. We've got to take a shot here to get in the field goal range. Obviously, it paid off for the Rams.
PFF.com, Steve Palazzolo, NFL insider on the Out of Bounds show. Steve, you hit on something earlier, and I want to go back there. I think all four teams have someone who's unguardable. Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel. Do you agree with that? 1, 2, is that where we're going? I mean, you can't just have a good wide receiver, okay, in that 10 to 20. You have to have, maybe not every year, but you almost have to have someone that's unguardable. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and the Chiefs have 2. They have Travis Kelce as well. So that's what's made them special. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of the NFL. And again, I always when you evaluate Mahomes, I always preface this. I'm not trying to take anything away from Patrick Mahomes and how special he's been through 4 years as a starter. But he has literally had the most uncoverable wide receiver in the NFL and the most uncoverable tight end in the NFL during that time. So it is a massive factor. And even if you go look at Julio Jones and his time with Atlanta, those guys are force multipliers, right? So there's the production that they create. There's the production they create for others because of how much they attract defense. That is there's absolutely something to that. And then in the NFL, when a wide receiver makes a great play like A.J. Brown did on last Saturday in that game, it's a 40-yard touchdown. Yeah, running backs will break one off every now and again, but they need other stuff to happen generally. Receivers making big plays, they flip the field. Jamar Chase caught, he had 266 receiving yards against the Chiefs. They don't win that game without Jamar Chase. The Chiefs, when they're making that ridiculous comeback, again, Mahomes is awesome, but when you can throw a 10-yarder to Tyreek Hill and he's faster than the fastest athletes in the world and takes it 64 yards to the house, that's why the Chiefs were able to make that comeback. So yeah, I'm all in on that. Find uncoverable playmakers. As difficult as it is, those guys are force multipliers on the field.
We'll leave it there. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, NFL Insider on the Corona Premier Guest Line. All right, Steve, I hope y'all win, and I hope the Bengals win, and it's pandemonium, and you're going to, I guess, SoFi? Is that where it is, L.A.? Yeah, for the Super Bowl. Boy, that'd be wild. Oh, so the Rams could play in their home stadium. We hadn't even talked about that.
Back-to-back home games for the Super Bowl, yeah.
Wow.
Last year, Rams this year.
We haven't hit that this week either.
With the Chiefs in both of them, potentially.
Wow. Okay. All right. Be good, buddy. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus on the Out of Bounds Show. Blake, what do you make of that? Are we going to that point where you have to have an unguardable skill player? So, and he mentioned two with the Chiefs, but let's just Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill / Kelce, and Deebo Samuel.
I mean, I think that's always been the ultimate goal of dynamic offenses.
There's like more of these guys today than there's ever been before.
Because there's a bigger focus.
Coaches will actually use them. I mean, Tim Brown may have been unguardable years ago, but they didn't use him. You could argue Randy Moss wasn't used enough. I mean, there are guys. You could argue Jerry Rice wasn't. I mean, when you look at like different eras with talent, but there weren't like when they were playing, you didn't have all these guys.
Yes. There's definitely
that are
more
unguardable.
Because from day one as a fifth grader, you're taught to play skill position at a different way, right?
Yeah.
Than you ever were before. So they're raised differently. That position is much more valuable than it used to be. I think of a guy like Randy Moss and Tom Brady. The Belichick-Brady model of like let's get a bunch of nobodies and win is a very specific and difficult model to take.
And it's over.
Look at what Brady did when he had Randy Moss. I mean, he broke like every NFL passing record that year. So you'd prefer to have the guy who is unguardable, obviously.
Who would you pick?
Of the four top guys?
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill's the best in this moment. Cooper Kupp might have more longevity moving forward. I don't know. That's a tough one. Jamar Chase, young.
Oh,
but
man.
he's not as proven as those other guys.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Les Miles told him he couldn't play wide receiver. Should we drop that audio on the other side?
That's the only thing Les Miles was telling people.
Oh, my goodness. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone. Brought to you by Dr. Kirk Jeffries and Eye Care Professionals. 2 locations on Lakeland Drive, Jackson and Belmead, Flowwood. Eye Care Professionals and Dr. Kirk Jeffries.